Hi everyone, I'm Richard.
And it's Tom.
And we are looking at the Division beta running on two separate graphics cards here, the GTX 970 and the R9 390.
So why have you chosen these two in particular then?
Yeah, well, essentially the GTX 970, it's a bit of a sales phenomenon. If you look at the Steam hardware survey, you'll see that, from month to month, it occupies between 4 to 5% of the entire Steam user base.
That's quite significant then.
Yeah, they're using that one graphics card. It's quite remarkable. And the nearest comparison point on the AMD side is the R9 390. So yeah, interesting sort of story here that the GTX 970, when it was released, the power to performance was just absolutely remarkable, and it was beating the 290X, the 290, which were costing hundreds of pounds more at the time. So it really was like a seismic shift in the GPU market, and the 390 is what AMD came up with to battle it. And essentially it is an overclocked 290, faster memory, faster cores.
The results are paying off, obviously, in this intro sequence at least.
Yeah, in this intro sequence, what you're seeing here is anything up to a 20 FPS lead over the 970. We've got both of them running at stock frequencies here. The one thing I would say is that virtually any GTX 970 you buy does have a factory overclock in place, but both of them are running at reference speeds here.
And just to be clear, what settings are we running on here?
Yeah, this is Ultra settings here, which isn't actually maxed, but I'm presuming that the developer thinks that Ultra really is
what you can see is as good as you can get out of the game, and this excludes the NVIDIA stuff, PCSS. Of course.
Yeah. Basically, we want a level playing field here, so none of the NVIDIA specific tech here, just to ensure that we are on a level playing field. Now, this is quite interesting because what you're seeing here is a slight sort of reversal of fortune at this point. Basically, the R9 390 seems to be losing a lot of its performance lead here in draw-heavy scenarios, basically outdoors, and here in combat, it is still the faster card, but in the most intense gameplay, we are seeing that the GTX 970 is putting up much more of a challenge here. I think this particular area, we've identified it from the beta as the most intensive sort of workout for our graphics hardware here.
Yeah, it's the biggest open street battle in the beta. I mean, none of the side missions come close. Yeah. But even here, the AMD card is still kind of pulling ahead.
Yeah, there are scenarios here. I mean, obviously, it's not entirely like for like, so there are scenarios where it really does pull ahead. And yeah, you can see here we're back to an engine-driven cutscene where, once again, we see that the AMD card pulls ahead significantly, anything up to a sort of 15 FPS advantage there. But what I will say is that we are in an internal scene here, which again does seem to really favour the AMD hardware. So that area where the GTX 970 was pulling level doesn't seem to
have impacted it. It won't have.
Yeah, basically you're not seeing what the GTX 970 is good at in these particular scenes. So yeah, it's an interesting scenario really.
But this is coming nowhere really close to a locked 60, across the run of play, is it? This is kind of the kind of maxed visual experience and what they can get away with on each side.
Yeah, basically this is 1080p ultra settings, and we're nowhere near a 1080p 60 lock here, and that's I would say that it's a bit of a disappointment, but as we'll discover later, there isn't really that much in it between ultra and high settings, and you do save a lot of GPU power here.
So it's a worthwhile compromise going to high from ultra just to get that 60 FPS lock
just to
on these
get
cards.
More temporal resolution, and I would take that over slightly improved effects, because I mean the game still looks fantastic on high, but ultra is kind of like basically you really want to push your GPU to the limit when you're spending upwards of £250 on a piece of hardware.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, here we are in an internal scene again with combat, and AMD really does take point there.
It really pulls ahead. So what are we seeing here?
Okay, so I'm rerunning the intro sections of the game, this time with the game at high settings and medium shadows, and this seems to give us something approaching the headroom that we need to run this game at a locked 1080p 60. But what I am doing is running the game unlocked so we can still see how much headroom we've got there. And you can see here that again we're in this draw intensive area. The 390 and the 970 are sort of level, but they are crucially at 60 FPS or slightly higher, which is good. But you can see the cyan line, which is the GTX 970 overclocked. That's with a 200 MHz boost to core, 400 MHz boost to memory. It's screaming ahead here. We have got so much more headroom there that it's it's quite remarkable.
That's surprising. So it's the core clock that's really holding this back, do you reckon?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, basically there is that headroom on the Maxwell card cards, and you'd be mad not to utilize them. So now we're coming up to that battle outside of the base.
This is really taking its toll on unoverclocked cards here. They're both kind of struggling to hit
well,
60.
You'll note that even the GTX 970 overclocked still dips beneath. So, you know, you're still going to have some issues running this game with an absolute 1080p 60 lock, even with the overclock, even with the quality settings tweaks that we've made. But overall, we are, you know, at a pretty locked frame rate
Once
here.
you've got VSync engaged,
Once you've got VSync engaged, you should be at 1080p 60 for the vast majority of the duration. You've got to remember that this is the biggest stress test that we were able to find in the beta. So yeah, I mean, basically all good really. I mean, we should be fine for the majority, but obviously it is a beta. There's hopefully optimizations to come, driver optimizations too. Yeah, so, you know, we're in good shape overall though on both hardware.
Agreed.
But anyway, that's all we have right now. Please do give us a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more Digital Foundry. We'll be back soon. See you later.
Now under control.